Good morning. For today's topic, I will be covering baseball. More importantly, though, I'll be covering not just baseball, but the origin of baseball, where it came from, the invention of it, the early professional background of baseball, and how it formed to the professional sport that it is today, and then the state of baseball where it is now, what modern baseball looks like, some of the stats that come with the viewership and how many people are watching it and its popularity. So let's dive right in. The first thing is the invention of baseball. Now, it is actually known that there is no known origin of baseball. Baseball just kind of formed. It formed around in the 1800s. The first game of baseball was played in 1846. Now, baseball is based off of an English game called rounders. This is kind of still in the similarity of having a bat, hitting a ball, a basic, simple idea like that. That's kind of where the game came from. It came from an English game and kind of spot up. So it came around in the 1800s. 1846 was the first game. Now these games were played around between men's clubs. There were clubs of clubs of men that played baseball, and they kind of just came around, and you'd have kind of like what a rec league is today, just a bunch of people who wanted to play the game, and it was all exhibition, all fun. So the game later caught popularity, and the the first league of it was made in February 2nd of 1876. This is when the National League was created. That's what they called at that time the professional league. They called it the National League. This consisted of 8 teams, and these teams still stay today. These teams are known as the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Phillies, the Giants, the Reds, the Cubs, the Dodgers, and the Braves. All 8 teams are teams that are still around today. So those were the first teams. That was the origin and the invention of baseball itself. So we're going to transition to early professional baseball and what baseball looked like in the early 1900s. That's when the game really started to catch focus and grew, and really when it hit its golden age. So in 1869 is when the officially made the Major League Baseball. That's when they made it an official sport. So at this point now it's a major sport, and it's got its own professional league, as we talked about with the National League. So in 1901, they took one of these leagues of men clubs and kind of raised it all the way up to the professional league and called it professional level and called it the American League. This introduced 8 more teams. So now you had an American League and a National League. It consisted of 16 teams. And this happened in 1901. So in 1903, we got the invention of the first ever World Series. This was the winner of the American League playing the winner of the National League, and this caught a lot of spark, a lot of focus, and gave the game an actual championship. Just like we have Super Bowls, just like we have championships in basketball and stuff. The World Series. So the first ever World Series was between the winner of the American League and the winner of the National League, and this first one was between the Reds and the Pirates, and it was a best of 9 games. Nowadays, the game has the World Series is a best of 7 games, but in this one, it was a best of 9 games. So the attendance to this World Series was just over 100,000, which back then would be a lot. So now we're gonna go a few years later, and we're gonna go to when baseball started airing on TV. The first televised game was August 26th, 1939, and it aired on the channel that is now WNBC.TV. The first World Series was televised a bunch of years later. So that's the first World Series that was televised was September 30th, 1947. And this was the Yankees beating the Dodgers 5-3 in a 2-hour-and-a-half scuffle. So more about the history and the development to what the modern game is has to do with the breaking of the color barrier. In 1847, the first colored baseball player, Jackie Robinson, made his debut for the Dodgers in August, wearing the number 42. The number 42 is now retired around all 30 baseball teams, and that means no player can wear the number because of what this signified and the importance that Jackie Robinson had on the game of baseball. And so now we're going to go to the modern baseball. So nowadays there are 30 teams. There are 3 divisions in each league, and then there's the 2 leagues. So that makes 6 divisions all in all. So the last 2 teams they added were in 1998. So now we're going to go into some stats and some statistics and some numbers having to do with the attendance of baseball and what popularity looks like with it nowadays. So In 2007, attendance peaked with 79 million tickets sold throughout the season. But now we're at the point where the World Series has hit a record low in viewing amount of just 9.2 million in 2020. And this has to do with the state of the game. So, for some stats and some percentages, so the star of baseball is Mike Trout. Just like in football, you have Tom Brady, and in basketball, you have LeBron James. But when you look at the stats of these players and their games that are broadcasted, just 1% of counties air a quarter of Mike Trout's games, while 100% of counties air at least a quarter of Tom Brady games, and 98% air a quarter of LeBron James games. So really shows how the counties and how the U.S. kind of values baseball and its stars. Another stat is a poll that shows that only 9% of people in the U.S. Listed baseball as their favorite sport. Another stat showed that attendance has lowered in 19 of 30 stadiums. Of the 30 stadiums, polls also show that the average baseball viewer is 57. This being up from 52 in 2006. So nowadays, the polls say that your average baseball viewer is kind of an old person. And I mean, that isn't in my case, but that's just what. It also says that just 7% of baseball's audience is below 18. I believe that this is very sad, but to me, baseball is still America's sport, and I love the game.